Hey guys, what's up, it's iFlynn here, and welcome to episode 8 of my Warframe Beginner's Guide for 2021. If you have any questions about progression in Warframe, jump over to my Twitch stream over at twitch.tv/iFlynn, link is in the description below. Like the video, subscribe, and let's get right into it. To recap, in the last episode, we crafted our 1-2-3 amp, started our first Kuva Lich, who should have a magnetic Kuva new core, and started playing some Railjack missions so we can upgrade our Railjack. I also asked you guys to complete the Chains of Harrow and Sacrifice quest. Once the Sacrifice quest is completed, you can play the Chimera Prologue. This can be found in your personal quarters and will reward you with the blueprint for the Paracesis melee weapon. The Sacrifice quest rewarded us with a lot of things. We got Excalibur Umbral, which is just a pre-potatoed version of Excalibur, the Sky Ajati, and Umbral mods. You can equip Umbral Vitality and Umbral Intensify to any of your Warframes that you would normally run these two mods on. The benefit of the Umbral mods is that they're going to increase one another's values if equipped in conjunction with one another. Same can be done with Sacrificial Pressure and Sacrificial Steel on your melee weapons. Use Sacrificial Pressure to replace Pressure Point and Sacrificial Steel to replace True Steel. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, I want you to try your best to get the Master Rank 8. The Master Rank 8 test is a parkour test, so it should be pretty straightforward to complete. Once you hit Master Rank 8, head to the market and pick up the blueprints for the Sarpa Gunblade. For this weapon, you're going to need to go to the Tenno Lab and pick up the blueprint for the Axe Stiletto, craft the Axe Stilettos and level them to 30, then craft the Sarpa. The Sarpa is a gunblade, which means it's a melee weapon that can shoot. We equip a mod to it called Shattering Impact, which is going to allow us to strip away the armor of enemies and, more importantly, from Eidolons. In this episode, we're mainly going to focus on getting better mods. So to make farming better mods more efficient, we're going to pick up the Warframe called Nekros. To farm Nekros, we have to head to Magnesidium on Deimos and kill Lephantis for Nekros' part blueprints. Then we head to the market, pick up his blueprint, and start crafting him in our foundry. Nekros' third ability is called Desecrate. This ability is basically going to make enemies drop extra loot, and it's really easy to build for. All we need to do is equip Power Range and Power Efficiency mods, and we're good to go. The Shattering Impact mod is dropped from Drecker Butchers. They can be found in the Grenier C-Lab tile set, so I recommend playing either a survival or defense mission on Uranus to farm up this mod. On top of that, the Drecker Butcher enemy also drops another really strong melee mod called Condition Overload. Condition Overload is a meta melee mod, so it's important to get our hands on it as soon as possible. If you're having trouble getting Condition Overload from the Drecker Butchers, you can also try running some Deimos bounties, as a lot of enemies in Deimos have a chance to drop Condition Overload as well. Speaking of Deimos bounties, some Deimos bounties will have a reward for a mod called Blood Rush and also for Weeping Wounds. Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds are more meta melee mods, so it's important to try and farm them up from Deimos bounties as soon as possible. After completing the Chimera Prologue, you may have noticed that there's an extra node on Jupiter called the Ropalolyst. This node is home to a boss, but it's not actually just any boss, it's an Eidolon. If you've been following along with the guide, that isn't a problem as we've got access to the 1-2-3 amp, but if you only have the Mo amp, well, you might struggle. I recommend checking out episode 6 of this guide to start learning about amps if you haven't already. The Ropalolyst is a flying Eidolon that we need a Volt, a Rubico, and our 1-2-3 amp to take down. We're only going to be using a Volt's electric shield ability, so make your Volt build look a little bit like this. Once the boss fight starts, jump onto any of the ropes that lead to these massive generators. Once you're at the generator, stand behind it. The Flydon is going to do a laser attack that will overcharge the generator. Place down an electric shield, enter into your operator, and shoot the Flydon with your amp until its shields are gone. Jump over to the Flydon, interact with it to grab onto it, then fly the Flydon into the generator. Once it lands, shoot one of the limbs on its back with your Rubico and then interact with this console. Rinse and repeat this process 3 times, and after the third generator, you're going to be able to just shoot the Eidolon until it runs out of health. Once its health hits 0, use the console again to land the killing blow on the Flydon. This boss fight drops parts for the Warframe called Wisp. We're going to need her for more efficient Eidolon runs in the Plains of Eidolon, so I recommend running this fight until you have all of the parts to craft Wisp. Once you've defeated the Ropalolyst at least once, implying you've completed all of our star chart nodes, you're going to have access to a new game mode called Arbitrations. Arbitrations are elite versions of endless missions with additional modifiers for greater difficulty. If you die in an Arby, you're not going to be able to revive yourself, only a teammate can revive you. You can view the active arbitration under the alerts tab on your navigation. The active RB changes out every single hour. While playing RBs, you're going to be rewarded with a lot of endo, some powerful mods, and a resource called Vitus Essence. The Vitus Essence and endo is mainly what we're after, as we can take the Vitus Essence and use it to purchase mods from the Arbitrations vendor, which is found in the Arbiters of Hexus room in any relay. From the RB vendor, we want to buy Preparation, Rolling Guard, and all of the other Galvanized mods, meaning we need 230 Vitus Essence total. Arbitrations shouldn't be too hard, especially if you're playing co-op. The only thing that might really bother you though is the small arbitration drones that make enemies immune to your abilities. Try your best to focus on killing them as fast as possible. Every single planet, now that you've completed the star chart, should have a nightmare mission. Nightmare missions reward you with nightmare mods. On screen now, I'm going to have a list of all of the nightmare mods that are worth picking up. As nightmare missions are daily missions, the mods that you get from them are a good source of platinum, so sell excess mods for platinum on Warframe Market. Drifting Contact, Shred, Lethal Torn, Animal Instinct, and Constitution are all really important mods that you can get from nightmare missions, so I recommend going after all 5 of these mods in particular. So up to now, you've hopefully been capturing some Eidolons with your 1-2-3 amp and maxing out your daily focus cap with Saren and ESO. If you have, that means you should have a decent amount of focus laying around ready to be spent. Head over to your operator and select Focus, press Zeneric, and it's going to bring up a skill tree. The first ability that we want to go for is Energizing Dash. Energizing Dash is going to allow you to dash with your operator and create an energy field that is going to restore your energy. At the top of the screen, we have what's called your pool. Your pool is basically your capacity for how many focus abilities we can have equipped at the one time. We can increase our pool by spending focus by pressing the red button beneath our actual capacity. Go ahead and invest as much focus as you can into Energizing Dash and make sure that you have the pool to be able to equip it. After you've maxed out Energizing Dash, you want to go for Void Siphon and Void Flow. You'll notice that other focus trees are currently locked. To unlock them, you need to farm up the focus lens for the focus skill tree that you want access to from bounties, then farm the focus with that lens equipped until you farmed up enough focus to unlock said focus tree. Alright, so doing a little bit of live commentary here. We have our 5 different focus skill trees, and each of them are sort of their own little category, right? So we have Zeneric, which is based around energy and energy regen. We have Naramon, which is melee and movement speed. Vazarin, which is restoring your own health and the health of your teammates and stuff like that. You got Madarai, which is more or less based around damage. And then we have Yunaru, which is kind of based around damage as well, but the focus skill tree mainly focuses on like defense and keeping yourself alive, just like in a worse way compared to Vazarin, right? Like this one's more about armor and stuff like that, where this one's more about health. So with Zeneric, the first ability that you want to go for is Energizing Dash. That's simple because this is a really good ability and it's going to help you, just get your daily tasks done, like your bounties and stuff like that, right? You're going to be able to make use of all of your abilities way more often because you have a more sustainable source of energy coming in. And then after that, I want you guys to go for Void Siphon and Void Flow. Now, you'll notice with Void Siphon and Void Flow, beneath them, whenever you hover over them, it says passive waybind. Now, basically what that means is that you can take Void Siphon and Void Flow and use it no matter which focus skill tree you're using, right? So you could be using the Naramon focus skill tree, but you would still be able to have Void Siphon and Void Flow active because they are a waybind passive, right? Now, in Naramon, we can't use Energizing Dash because that's not a passive waybind. That is unique and stuck to your locked on. With Zeneric, we can't take that and put that onto Naramon, right? So if we go into the Naramon focus skill tree, we'll see that we have passive waybinds in here. If I can find them, it's Mind Step and Mind Sprint. So Mind Step, it increases the operator movement speed by whatever percentage it is at max rank. And then we have Mind Sprint, which increases Void Dash speed by 20%. Now, Mind Sprint and Mind Step, very useful, right? Those are worthwhile upgrades. So what you want to be doing with all of these focus skill trees is going in and getting all of the waybind passives, right? So you have to go do your bounties, get the focus lens for all of the different focus skill trees, equipping it, getting 50,000 focus to unlock it, and then getting additional focus to, get all of the waybind passives and stuff like that. The other thing is you need Brilliant Eidolon shards to unlock these waybind passives, right? So we're able to use our Brilliant Eidolon shards and then convert that into focus, well, we actually need some of them for the waybind passives as well. So you can sort of start to see why doing eidolons on a regular basis is really worthwhile. Not only is it a really good source of getting focus, but it's also necessary for the waybind passives, right, to make your operator really strong. So a lot of you might be struggling in eidolon hunts with your operator's health, right, and that's where enduring tides and rejuvenating tides comes into play, right? Increases operator health by whatever percentage at max rank, and then we also have increases operator health regen by whatever it is at max rank as well, right? So extremely good passive waybind. Now, which one you go for first is entirely up to you. If it were me, I would probably do like Zeneric and then Naramon, because like you're using Zeneric in your regular missions, and the idea of regular missions is to get them done as fast as possible. So the things from, or the waybind passives from Naramon, because it increases your speed and it increases your void dash, that's really nice. And Mind Sprint pairs very well with the energy things here, simply because like your void dashes take energy, right? So the more operator energy you have, the more you're able to dash and the quicker you're able to get missions done, right? So like your void relics, for example, right? If you're doing a fisher mission, a capture mission, an exterminate mission, you can just use your operator to dash through it extremely quickly. Another thing is you can use energy pads to regen your operator energy and just keep on dashing, and you can get things done insanely fast. If you ever check out my Twitch streams, you'll probably see me like just blitz through missions really quickly with operator. Some newer players don't even understand what's going on, and that's because, you know, nobody sort of taught them any of this stuff, right? So again, which you go for is entirely up to you. The other really important one is Madarai, and it's not because of the waybind passive, but it's for the void strike ability, right? So this isn't like the final stats because I haven't unlocked it and it's not max rank in this account, but it says on leaving void mode, the next one attack deals 5% additional damage for every second spent cloaked. Cloaked consumes 2 additional energy per second, right? So basically, whenever you're crouching with your operator, you're invisible, you're in void mode, you are completely invincible to all damage. What this is saying is while you're invisible, you're going to be stacking up a damage bonus, and your next couple of shots, or however many it is based on the rank of your void strike ability, are going to deal additional damage based on how long you were invisible for. So this is extremely strong versus eidolons, because you can just stay crouched or stay invisible, stay in your void mode, and then come out of your void mode and have your damage amplified by like 2 times or something, right? So it's really good for taking down eidolon shields. It will also increase the damage of like, you know, your Rubico or whatever, but you mainly want to be using this ability for your what's it called, your eidolon shields and stuff like that. The waybind passives in here increase energy for amps and void beams by 10%. That's fantastic as well. And then increase energy regeneration rate for amps and void beam. Amazing, you know, just super great for eidolon hunting. Madarai is kind of like the go-to for hunters who want to like sort of take it that next step further, because there are additional eidolons, right? So you have your Terralist, and then you have a Gunchalist and a Hydralist. You've probably seen it in the bounty menu that there's 3 of them. Now, whenever you get Void Strike, Inner Gaze, Eternal Gaze, and you've got Zeneric and Naramon and Vazarin waybind passives, that's whenever you're ready to take them down. You might want to do that, like the Gunchalist at the very least, a little bit sooner. I'll cover how to do it in a later episode, but it's very important to sort of like be paying attention to this and investing your eidolon shards into getting focus and getting these waybind passives and stuff like that, right? So you take off Void Siphon and Void Float. You're not taking it off, but you get the waybind passive from both of these. Get the waybind passive, these here, Mind Step and Mind Sprint. Then you get the Rejuvenating Tides and Enduring Tides. And then here in Madarai would be your active focus skill tree whenever you're doing the eidolon hunts because of the Void Strike ability. And then you have Inner Gaze and Eternal Gaze active at the same time. The waybind passives in your Naru, they are, if I can find them, increase operator armor by 50% and increase Void Blast radius by 15%. Not that great. but it's still good. Unari Wisp is for like a specific role in Eidolon hunts, which I'm not going to cover in this video, but just know that this here is the ability worth going for in the Unari tree if you do want to sort of like start investing more into your focus. You also have this pull thing on top right here, right? So this is basically your capacity. I don't know if I've already explained this in the script but you spend focus to increase the capacity of your operators, so then you can equip these abilities, right? So if I unequip Energizing Dash, you see that I get more. We go from 2 up to 11, right? So then I could equip something else. So you have to increase this to have the abilities equipped, but you can max this out at a certain point, right? It only goes up to a certain point, so it's not like an endless pit which you can keep on investing focus into. It will cap out at a certain point. I think it's like 177 or something like that, and then you can equip every single focus ability on any of the trees, right? So I would go for Zeneric, get Energizing Dash, go for Void Siphon, go for Void Flow, get out of that one, and then go to Naramon, get your Mind Step and Mind Sprint, and then get the Waybound passives for those, right? Another thing is Power Spike, really strong. Affinity Spike, really strong. And then go for Vazarin, get all that there stuff, and then go for Madarai, invest in that. So just to keep it brief, I'm going to stop talking now and continue on with the script of the beginner guide. Actually, I beat it myself. I'm going to continue the rest of this episode doing it live commentary because there's kind of a lot to explain, and I can explain it a little bit faster if I deviate from the script a little bit and just do it here in the ship. So this episode is mainly focusing on getting you a lot of mods, and with the amount of mods that I'm asking you guys to go and farm, it's going to be overwhelming, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to show you guys what types of builds we're shooting for with all of these mods, right? So we're looking to make a pretty good build for Vault, simply because if we can make a good build for Vault, doing Eidolons is going to be a lot easier, because his electric shield ability, it adds electric damage to everything that we shoot for it, right? And radiation damage is made by combining electric and heat together, right? So if we can increase the amount of electric damage we're dealing through the electric shield that Vault can put down, well, then we're dealing more radiation damage, which means the Eidolon is going to take more damage, and it's going to be a lot easier to take down his limbs. Now, on top of that, it also increases the crit damage off your amp. So if you're standing there with your amp and you're shooting at the Eidolon and you happen to crit with it and you're shooting through Vault shield, well, then that's epic, because now you've just dealt a way bigger number than you would have if you hadn't shot through a Vault shield, right? So basically what we're doing with Vault is we're just making a efficiency and duration build, right? So we just have on a Vitality mod. It doesn't have to be the Umbral version, right? I would probably recommend just going for the regular version of Vitality. So let me go ahead and type that in, because it consumes less, and you can also put it on a Depolarity, so that's amazing as well. So it's just the exact same value. It's just if you had Umbral Intensify, if you threw on Umbral Intensify and Vitality alongside one another, so we do this and this, you see that it goes up to 550%, but the Umbral Intensify doesn't actually affect the amount of damage from electric shields, so it doesn't really matter that much, right? So we just go ahead and take it off, and we just focus on the duration and the efficiency to put down, as many shields as we can, and also have them up for as long as we possibly can as well, right? So we go for a build that looks a little bit like this. This would sort of be like the bare minimum. Vizika is on there as a placeholder aura mod. Now, aura mods, they basically share their benefit with the rest of the team, right? So if I'm running Physique, maximum health increased by 90%, and another person was running Physique, it would be 180%, right? So you can run a different aura mod. The one that is really good for Eidolons, because it reduces their armor, corrosive projection. It doesn't do it by a lot, but it helps out a little bit with your damage, especially if you can get your hands on that early and you don't have the Shattering Impact mod that I spoke about earlier. You get corrosive projection from the Nightwave vendor, so you trade in the Nightwave credits and you can get it from there. So if you don't have the Gunblade, or you're waiting on the Gunblade to finish crafting it and you haven't got the Shattering Impact mod yet, corrosive projection is a good alternative. So we've got Streamline and iFlynn Expertise on here for the efficiency. So we've got maximum efficiency, so our shields cost 12.5 energy to cast. Nara Minded for a ton of ability duration. So your ability range on the shield doesn't matter at all. There's no range stat on here, so you can just, forego all range. It's down to 34% on this build, and we're totally fine, right? We got 40-second duration. We can have, I think it's 5 shields down at any given time. It's like 5 or 4, something like that. And you just shoot for it, you get 50% electric damage added to your shot. Amazing. And it also increases your crit damage as well, which is pretty great, you know. So it's a really simple build. Augur Message, you get this from Plains Vital and Bounties. Fleeting Anar Minded, you get from Corrupted Vaults. I covered that in a very early episode, so if you haven't been watching since episode 1, I suggest you go and do so. And that is basically the vault build, right? Like, this is gonna help you do add-ons extremely quickly, because you just put down the electric shield and it's gonna amplify your damage by a butt ton. Right, the next thing we want to look at is our Rubico. Rubico build hasn't changed. We got Stormbringer and Hellfire for our radiation damage, like I mentioned beforehand. Serration for our just damage. Split Chamber, this is a multi-shot mod. You may have got lucky and got this free transmutation, or you can get it from higher tier planets. Let me just go ahead and Google this real quick where it actually dropped from, just because I can't remember off the top of my head. You get this from tier 3 defense excavation, or Dark Sector Survival, Kuva Survival, or Tier 3 Survival. So it does drop from some enemies as well, but the drop chance is pretty low. I get it pretty consistently from Fortuna, because there's a lot of enemies in Fortuna that drops split chambers. So if you want to get that from there, go ahead and do so. Just make sure to run Nekros, but it can be like a mission reward as well. So I'm going to link the wiki page down below, or a link to my website where I've got like a page where it lists all of the essential mods and the best place to farm them. So you can go check out either of those pages, and that should definitely help you out whenever it comes to farming any of the mods that you don't have. Vital Sense, I mentioned where to get this, I think in the previous episode or episode before that, can't remember. And then Point Strike you should just have, right? So this Vital Sense, I think this is from Dark Sector defense missions. You can get it from there. But yeah, this is a pretty bog standard Rubico build. It can be upgraded later on. The Rubico we're going to be swapping out for the Lanka, and then the Rubico Prime, we get the Lanka at MR10, and then the Rubico Prime at MR12. Now I think the Rubico Prime at the time of recording this video is currently vaulted, so you might have to buy that with Platinum, and it might go up in price, saying I'm suggesting people to buy it in this video. Just check Warframe.market and try to get it for the lowest price that is on Warframe.market, and then you should be good to go. But yeah, there is a lot more things you could do here. You could add on like more elemental mods that will increase your radiation damage. So if you have the 60/60 mods for heat, for example, so if you have ferment rounds, you can go ahead and throw that there on. If you've got the electric version of that, so high voltage, you can throw that there on, and that is a pretty good beginner Rubico build to go for Eidolons, right? Next up, we've got the Cuban Eucor. Now, I mentioned this briefly in the previous episode, and we're basically using this for our melee weapon, right? So on my melee weapon here, I have got a few different builds, right? So this is your beginner build. This is a really simple build that you could put together, and this will deal damage, right? You can kill high level enemies with this here build right here. It is just like a raw damage build. You have corrosive and heat on, and that's going to strip away armor, have a DOT, and of course if you're using a melee weapon that has a lot of like slash damage, like the Sky Ajati or the Broken War, those two weapons you got rewarded from the second dream quest and the sacrifice quest. They're pretty good for a build like this, right? Quickening you can replace for fury if you don't have it. True steel is for crit. After the sacrifice, you can replace true steel with sacrificial steel, sacrificial pressure, because they'll sort of like bounce off one another, and it's more or less the same build. We just swapped out those two mods, and I think I added on volcanic edge there. Not too sure what I swapped out. I think I just did that because I couldn't fit on the what's it called? I went for a viral and heat. So you could go for corrosive and heat, or you can go for viral and heat. It doesn't really matter as long as you're using a slash melee weapon. It will depend on which enemies you're going up against, realistically. But viral heat, corrosive heat are kind of the go-to elemental combos for newer players, right? So you make viral by combining cold and toxin, and then you know, heat in your third slot. So keep in mind that the weapon modding sections have like an order to them. It is 1, the first slot in the top left, and then 8 is the bottom slot in the bottom right, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's how it goes. And as long as you don't like totally mess up, right? So if I go to config E over here and I go ahead and I pick up Molten Impact, right? I've got that in slot 2, and then I go for, let's say I want to build radiation, I go for electric. So slot 1 and slot 2, that's totally fine. I can move Molten Impact into slot 3 and I still have my radiation. As long as I don't have a mod between them, it's not going to mess up my elemental combo. But if I were to put cold there now, it would make, what's it called? It would make magnetic and heat, which isn't what we want, right? So it needs to be swapped around like that. But, you know, you can have North Wind here and you have Molten Impact here, as long as numerically, you know, the Molten Impact, the next elemental mod is after the Shocking Touch, you're fine. You're good to go, right? So that is pretty much that. I wish I could sell that config slot that I just bought. That's going to ignore me. So yeah, so this is your after sacrifice build that you could sort of shoot for on your melee weapons. Of course, like I said, you can swap Northwind and Fever Strike. You swap out Northwind for Shocking Touch, and then that'll make your Corrosive, and then the Volcanic Edge for your Molten Impact, and then that's going to give you more damage. It just is a matter of polarities and the capacity you've got. This is your Steel Path ready build. Now, I haven't spoke about Steel Path in the beginner guide yet, but Steel Path is what we're shooting to do, right? And you'll notice that the melee build has changed up entirely here. Quick note, all of these builds that I'm showing you, you cannot run on your Zorus. Well, you could run them, but it won't be as effective as you might think. This is mainly for slash melee weapons. So melee weapons that you're not utilizing the heavy attack and you're just spamming their basic combos to deal a lot of slash procs and deal a lot of damage with the basic combos, like the Broken War, like the Sky Ajati, like I mentioned before. So don't try to put these builds on the Zorus. The Zorus is a heavy attack weapon and you build it specifically for heavy attacks, right? So this is your Steel Path ready build, and this is where the Kuvan Yukor that we're picking up comes into play. So I asked you guys to farm up this here mod called Condition Overload. Condition Overload is plus 80% melee damage per status type affecting the target. So for every new status type that you put on an enemy, so let's say viral, heat, slash, corrosive, electric, etc., you're going to get a bonus 80% damage, which is really nice. And you can actually out damage Prime Pressure Point, which is just the prime version of Pressure Point, which has 165% bonus damage. You can out damage that with Condition Overload, implying you have a Kuvan Yukor that has multiple elements on it, right? So this Kuvan Yukor here has viral, magnetic, radiation, and heat, and it has a very high status chance of 140%. Status chance is basically the chance to proc a status effect. So a status effect is something like burning or bleeding or being frozen or being shocked, stuff like that. Those are status effects, and this is like a beam weapon. So if you just sort of aim the beam at the enemy, 140%, it's going to deal all of these different procs as you're aiming at the enemy, right? So with the Kuvan Yukor base, we have radiation and magnetic because we started our Kuvalich hunt with Mesa, which made him a magnetic Kuvalich, right? And that's why we get a magnetic Kuvan Yukor from him. And then we mod onto the weapon the viral and the heat, right? So we have Frostbite and then Pistol Pestilence. So that is your cold and your toxin. And then we have our heat here. So that makes your viral and heat. And then the rest is just, you know, status chance, status duration, multi-shot, stuff like that. So this is one type of build you can go for. You can go for a build that looks like this here as well, and that will work totally fine as well. This one actually has more status chance, so it is totally down to you what you want to run. This one has more status chance, where this one has a little bit more status duration, so the status effects will be on the target for longer. So both of these builds totally work, you know, they're both totally fine. So screenshot those or come back to this video whenever you get your Kuvan Yukor. We will be covering a little bit more of the Kuvalich in the next episode. But yeah, there's that. So you use the Kuvan Yukor, you shoot the enemy with the Kuvan Yukor, and that is going to give you a lot of damage from Condition Overload. And then we've got viral on the weapon itself here, and that is just for the sake of, like, maybe you don't have the Kuvan Yukor yet, and maybe like you don't have the most damaging mods in the world yet. So viral is going to give you that bonus damage, and it's also going to help you, you know, consistently proc viral as well if you're not used to swapping to the Kuvan Yukor, or let's say you haven't got it yet. This is sort of like a buffer to help you out with that, right? Drifting Contact is for combo durations. So we've got Blood Rush and Weeping Winds. I haven't actually talked about how you guys can get Weeping Winds. Let me see. Let me Google that real quick. Weeping Winds Warframe. I'm pretty sure you get this from bounties as well. Yeah, so you get this from Necros bounties, which is bounties in Heart of Deimos, the Cambion Drift. So it's the exact same place that you get Blood Rush from. These two mods are really strong because as your combo counter goes up, you're getting more crit chance and you're getting more status chance, right? So more slash procs are being applied and you're just hitting heavier, right? So Drifting Contact increases your combo duration, so your combo meter can stay higher for longer. Really strong, and it's also increasing your status chance, which is helping out with your condition overload as well, which is amazing. Organ Shatter is on here for your critical damage, which, you know, hitting harder, massive. And a Berserker Fury on melee kill, 35% attack speed for 10 seconds, stacks up to 2 times. You can get this from the tentacle looking enemies in the Void, so you don't necessarily need this. You can still use Quickening, you can still use Fury, but this is just a really good attack speed mod, which, you know, it's going to help you out. So this is the build that we're shooting for on the likes of our Skyajati or our Broken War. It is really damn strong, and it will kill a lot of enemies, right? So that is pretty much that. And then we also have amalgam, or not amalgam mods, the galvanized mods that I asked you guys to pick up. So those will be placed onto the weapons that we're farming up from Kuvaliches later on. So for example, I've got the Kuvazar here. The galvanized mods basically act like on kill mods, right? So this one is Galvanized Chamber, is 80% multi-shot on kill, and then plus 30% multi-shot for 20 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. This is just a better version of Split Chamber, right? So Split Chamber is your multi-shot, so that's 90%, but this here one basically outdoes that, right? Whenever you get the consistent kills with it, okay? So yeah, this is all to sort of prepare us for Steel Path. There are a lot of prime mods that you need to get from Barokatir before we can jump into Steel Path. Steel Path is just Warframe star chart on hard mode with buffed numbers, more or less, but you can get a lot of really good rewards, such as these here Arcanes from it. So yeah, that is basically what we're after, right? We're after a good primary from Kuvaliches, but we're not getting that yet. We have to get our Kuvanukor first, and then we want to upgrade our mods so we can make a build like this. Remember, you gotta like format and get Aurican Reactors and Aurican Catalysts. If you forgot where Aurican Catalysts and Aurican Reactors are from, they're actually from Nightwave, right? So you do all these challenges. Okay, I'm ranking up here. This is great. This is amazing. Look at all the stuff that I'm getting. So you're doing all of these challenges to rank up with Nightwave, and then you get these Nora credits. You go to credit offerings, and you can buy the Aurican Reactors and Aurican Catalysts here. There are a bunch of other ways to get them, such as invasions from this here menu over here. Like sometimes there is you know, your potatoes up in here, but there's also alerts. And another thing I recommend paying attention to is the Warframe Twitter page, because they'll announce on there when they are doing Twitch drops. And all you got to do for that is link your account to, or link your Warframe account to your Twitch account, and then watch like a Warframe stream or Warframe Twitch streamer for half an hour, and then you'll get like an Aurican Reactor or Aurican Catalyst delivered into your inventory via your inbox. So that's another thing that you can potentially check out. So yeah, basically TLDR, upgrade your mods, get the good mods, and we're looking to make builds like that. Okay, that is basically it. So I know this is like a long go get this mod, upgrade this mod episode, but it's something that sort of has to be done. And on top of that, like really pay attention to, you know, Earth and the day and night cycle doing eidolons, because the quicker you make your operator super overpowered, the easier this game is going to get. Like this entire episode is just based around like how can we make this game 10 times easier than it already was, type of thing. So anyway guys, that is going to be it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button below, and if you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.